Good morning, guys. It is Jonathan with One Big Impact. So this video is actually going to be, first of all, if you're new here, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and go check us out on Facebook. Our group is called Healthy Living for a Healthy Life. First of all, this video is going to be a basic overview on how to build muscle. I know a lot of people have gone through the weight loss process like myself and wanted to go back in and start building muscle, and maybe you were a little unsure, and maybe you don't work with a professional that can help you. Also, I do offer full online training as well as in-person personal training and online nutritional guidance as well as in-person nutritional guidance. I have take-as-you-go meal plans, and I also offer ongoing nutritional guidance. So you can feel free to message me through the Facebook group, Healthy Living for a Healthy Life. So I have down here 12 things that I wrote down that I feel that are going to be probably the absolute pivotal points that will be the most beneficial on achieving your success. Now, of course, there's going to be ones in addition to this, but I think these are the basics, and a lot of people overlook many of them, and we kind of just get stuck thinking if we go to the gym and lift weights, well, then we're going to build muscle. Although, unfortunately, sometimes that can be the case for some people. But if you want to absolutely maximize your results, these are going to be some very important factors. So the first thing is going to be, number one is progressive overload. Basically what that means is that you want to continue to get stronger or lift more weights, more volume, meaning like if you lifted a total of like 1,000 pounds during your lifting today, in a year maybe you want to lift 1,500, and that's obviously just numbers that I'm throwing out. But if you can only lift 1,000 pounds, during a training session, and you'd be surprised because it's a lot more than that usually. But if that was the amount that you were lifting now, the amount that you would want to lift in the future would want to be more. Therefore, you would have more muscle, you would have more strength, you would have more endurance. Therefore, you are actually putting on lean muscle mass. So it's really important. If you go in the gym and lift the same exact weights, you, although will get stronger initially, it will not transfer to long-term personal muscle gains. So make sure you are important about that, or make sure you keep that in the forefront of your mind, but also remember that you want to do it with good form. So obviously the basics of the exercises are going to be most important first. Understand and learn the exercises first, because just simply moving more weight does not transfer to building more muscle. You have to do it under good, proper form and understanding those exact exercises before doing so. Number two is going to be volume and intensity. Like I said, kind of along the same lines, you can manipulate volume by adding weight, but you can also manipulate intensity, meaning intensity means, for instance, lowering your rest periods. You could, it's just basically, instead of adding weight, you could do things, all sorts of different things. You could add in drop sets, multi-sets, pyramid sets, triangle sets, you could do 21s. There's so many different things that you can do. But I think the most important thing is that you're not basically doing the same thing over and over. And I'll talk about that next. Number three is going to be consistency. In the same sense, not doing anything over and over, you also have to do things over and over. Meaning, like, if you're on a training program, it's extremely vital that you're not switching from exercise to exercise. Many people that I see, not only in person, but I see them in the gym all the time, and I don't know what they're doing necessarily, but I do know it looks like there's a lot of non-systematic approach to what they're doing. They're jumping from machine to machine. You can tell they kind of don't really know what they're doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think getting with a professional or a personal trainer, whether it's me writing you a program online, and I do have full app access to that, so you can carry the app with you around and just plug in your numbers. It's pretty easy. But having somebody to work with to be able to work on a structured program for a period of time. Now, in the same sense, with a little bit more trained individuals, or even sometimes with beginner programs, you'll do all types of different exercises. So it may look very scattered or unorganized, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. But the important thing is that through those exercises, whichever they are, whether it's full body training, if you're doing push-pull leg splits, if you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, that you are staying consistent with those things for a period of time to be able to see progression, meaning increasing the volume, and the consistency is going to be important. Now, obviously, you're only going to be able to go so far with these things. Maybe it's an 8-week program, 12-week program, 4-week program, 16-week program, or anything like that. But the progressive overload eventually will hit a halt, and you can only bench so much without being able to get in a position to where you can keep adding weight. Progressive overload will stop, but it's important to follow it long enough to where you feel and you see gains. Because if you're just going in there and one day you're doing legs and then you're like, man, the next day I'm going to do legs, maybe I'll do abs, and you're not actually seeing any increases in the weights, whether it's through volume or intensity, and you're not sticking with the program long enough to be able to see a hypertrophy response, maybe the course of like 8 weeks, maybe you're going to start to see muscle adaptations after 2 to 4 weeks, but start to see an increase in muscle size and definition. Good 8 weeks is going to be probably a really good range. So even if you're creating your own programs and you really don't know what you're doing, try to follow the same things for long enough to be able to get a good muscle response. Number 4 is going to be protein. I think it's very under appreciated. If you're following something like Atkins or keto, a lot of the times they're going to shoot way low. Now, I personally would probably suggest that you put on some muscle while losing fat, because the more fat, the more protein, or I'm sorry, the more muscle that you have, the more easy it is going to be to be able to burn fat. Now, you got to be careful with your macronutrients and stuff like that, because when you're on Atkins per se, or keto, like Atkins induction or whatever, you're going to have 70-75% fat, you're going to have 20-25% protein, and you're going to have like 5% carbs. So if you put out the 20% of your 2,000 or whatever, that's going to be like 400 calories. So it's going to be like 100 grams of protein or whatever. That's not going to be high enough. So you're going to have to hike that up and maybe lower the fats and stuff like that. So you're going to have to play around with your macronutrients. I think it's a good range. I'll link in the description below. Jeff Nippard's a great resource that I love his stuff. And I'll link I'll put a link in the description below about his video that he talks about the sliding scale. It's important to understand your lean body mass. If you don't know what a lean body mass is, basically it's your total weight minus your fat, and then you would base your protein intakes off of that, not necessarily your actual weight. So currently I weigh like 250. I have 181 pounds of lean body mass. I am higher on the body fat percentage than I should be, but realistically I'm right around like between 25 and 30% right now, which is very high, and I will be going down. So my scale, the scale would say 1.2 to 1.6 pound, or 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if you do the math really quick, I would be down to the lower end of the scale because my body fat is going to be higher. And if your body fat was lower, like leaner, like 10% or whatever, you'd be up towards the 1.6 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. So mine being 1.2, that puts me at 181 pounds times 1.2 is going to be 217 grams of protein a day. That'll be on the low end of the scale because I really don't need to be feeding a bunch of fat protein, if that makes sense. So understanding, but if you don't want to go into the whole science of that, and that's confusing, if you weigh 200 pounds, eat 200 grams of protein. It's pretty damn easy. And that can give you something to start with, at least. I would try to get at least 75 to 80% of your food to meet your protein intakes. It's not as hard as you might think usually, especially if you are a volume eater or you have a problem overeating. Your satiety will be increased by eating more protein. So if you're trying to eat shakes 24/7 and stuff like that, usually that's just a quick fix and you're probably going after it because it's sweet. A protein shake is going to make you feel fuller longer, so that can really stave off hunger, so that's really important. Calories, okay, so calories for building muscle, you kind of want to start with your baseline, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, the rate in which it takes you to have calories. A lot of us chronically overeat, a lot of us chronically undereat. It's like a 50-50 balance with people. I have had weight loss clients come to me and say, hey, I've lost a bunch of weight, I'm at 700 calories, I want to put on muscle. And unfortunately, you're not going to put on muscle if you are in that far of a deficit. I would say the good general rule of thumb is to get your calories at maintenance. You can start putting on muscle, especially if you're new to training, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's limited to new to training completely. It could be that maybe you were training, but you really didn't know what the hell you were doing, and you were kind of just bouncing all over the place, and now you're on a structured program, which means you're basically new to training. So that can be really important. So putting on muscle at that point can be done usually at maintenance calories. But a general rule of thumb with somebody that's a little bit more advanced in lifting and stuff like that, you do want to put yourself into approximately 250, maybe, and this all depends on body type. You may start to put on weight at a certain calorie surplus, like 100 calories, and that can be perfectly fine. A 10% increase of calories per pound, so if you're at 2,000 calories, increasing by 200, that puts you in a good caloric surplus to be able to be putting on muscle mass. So that's just a good general rule of thumb, and same thing for males, females. It's a pretty good general thing. If you start putting on too much fat too fast, back them off just a little bit, maybe 50 calories, wait 4 days, see what happens. You don't want to put on too much fat too fast, because that's just a recipe for disaster. Now, strength training, completely different, but if you're looking to build muscle, and I'm not saying that strength you necessarily need to get fat to be able to do it, but unfortunately a lot of us get stuck in that scenario, like myself. The next thing is training age. Okay, a lot of people are under the impression that they will be able to put on 20 pounds of muscle per year for the next 50 years. Well, if that were the case, you would be absolutely huge after the first few years. I don't know the exact guidelines, but I do know it tends to diminish. Now, here's the thing. If you have not been maximizing your muscle growth and you haven't seen in the first year 12 to 15 pounds of muscle gains, then unfortunately, and you may not if you're obese, you could be fighting the battle, meaning that you're trying to lose body fat while increasing your muscle mass, and that can be like a give and take. It takes a little bit of while to get yourself into a prime position. Maybe a hard gainer could, or somebody that's in the middle, maybe a mesomorph, could find themselves putting on 12 to 15 pounds in a perfect scenario, following a very strict regimen, making sure their meals are perfect, making sure they don't miss training sessions, making sure they get plenty of rest, and lowering their cortisol levels. And in a perfect world, maybe that works. Not necessarily with everybody. 12 to 15 pounds maybe the first year, 6 to 8 the second year, 2 to 3 years after, and you're going to really start to fight after that. And I'm not saying, if you think about it as a whole, putting on, if you took off 10 pounds of fat or 20 pounds of fat off yourself and put on 15, 20 pounds of lean muscle tissue, there's going to be an extreme recomposition of your body. So you have to remember that although it doesn't sound like a lot, it is a massive change in your body. So don't think that just because it's only small numbers, 2 to 3 pounds, well, why should I do this? I should stop after a couple years. That's not the case. You will lose it very rapidly, so don't do that. Number 7, shock the muscle. You have to put your body into shock. You will get to a point where, tied in with the next number 8 is stagnation. You have to make sure you shock the muscle to be in avoidance of stagnation. So many of us become creatures of habit. Like I said before, we do have to follow programs, but if you follow them too long, they become ineffective. Your body will go through an adaptation process, just like losing fat. You will hit a plateau and you will no longer be growing. I have, for the first time, predominantly over the last 16 to 20 weeks, focused almost purely on strength training. Not a lot of hypertrophy, meaning the building of muscle in that. And because of that, I have not found any stagnation. I have found increased muscle. I I put on in about 30 days a little over 6 pounds of muscle, and maybe some people won't believe that, and I don't care, because I have the printouts in my InBody to prove it, and on multiple occasions have proved it. Unfortunately, I picked up quite a bit of body fat during the process, but that's all about the learning process. I'm not smarter than anybody else necessarily. We all learn at different rates, and I think it's really important going through, not only taking myself through this process, but taking through clients through this process. We really figure out what works best with our bodies and what does not. But important to make sure you do not become stagnant. I will take the gain of muscle also with the gain of fat, because I'm really good at understanding how to put myself in a caloric deficit and mess with my macros to be able to find a good balance to be able to drop weight, which I will do shortly. So, and that's my way of justifying all that. And that's the whole thing. Like, you really are on a constant learning process, not only with yourself, but with others. You may find people in your home that lose fat at a rate way quicker than you, and maybe you put on muscle rate way quicker than them. So it all depends. Every person's a little bit different. Number 9, lower your fat amounts to be able to build more muscle. Okay, so and vice versa, in tandem with each other. Build more muscle to lower your body fat. So the more muscle you build, a lot of people will tend to become cardio monkeys. It'll just be cardio 24/7, 24/7, 24/7. You will see, and there's no bash in here, there's no shame in your game, and you'll see people like going to gyms, and you'll say, man, that dude is on the freaking equipment for like 10 hours a day, like, and it just gets more, and they become gerbils, and it's just cardio monkey, cardio monkey, cardio monkey. And the problem with that is, because you are putting yourself into shock and continuously to burn cortisol, or to heighten your cortisol and burn muscle, you're putting yourself in a less optimum state to be able to get rid of actual body fat. So you want to put on more muscle, a little bit less cardio, and you're going to put yourself in a better position. Otherwise, your body's like fight or flight. I don't know what is actually happening. I'm trying to expel. I can't burn fat as fast as I can lean muscle tissue, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And then you find yourself, in that shock process. You're stressed out, you're overwhelmed, your body's getting too much. And a lot of the times people like that, taking a break off of workouts completely, if you've been on this crazy, insane regimen and you've tried to lose body fat for months and months and months, or years and years and years, a lot of the times taking a break can really kind of ignite your body fat loss process again, because you're really just overstimulating your body by 10-folds. So that's really important. Number 10, understanding rep ranges. And so 4 to 6 reps, and these are not perfect. Everybody's going to give you a different damn number no matter where you go. 4 to 6 reps is good. 4 to 8, but 4 to 6 is good for strength training. 8 to 12 is good for hypertrophy, the building of muscle. And 12 to 15 is good for muscle endurance. And let's go even further than that to 15, 20, 25, 30 is going to be great for muscle endurance as well. Now, the thing that you have to understand is the whole idea of building muscle that I said previously was 8 to 12. So that's a good range for hypertrophy. That is kind of the industry standard for bodybuilding and stuff like that. But I promise you, no matter who you see anytime, the big thing that you have to understand is that in order to get a better muscle response, you are going to have to, over time, get stronger. You're going to have to be more intense. So because, like I said previously, when you get to the point to where you are going to start fighting for those muscle gains, a few years down the road, you're going to have to employ, obviously, different types of tricks and scenarios, like drop sets and supersets and stuff like that, and 21s and those high-low sets and stuff like that, or high rep sets and stuff. And the reason is because you're going to really have to shock the muscle. But in the same sense, you are going to have to do those low rep ranges, because you're going to have to get stronger to be able to push more weight during the bodybuilding training. In the same sense, you're also going to have to put yourself in a situation to where you do some high endurance training, because If you're wanting to keep up with those high reps and actually push to the next level to be able to be more intense with your training, maybe you're going to be dropping your rest periods a little bit to be able to kind of kick your process up and really kick up the intensity. Then you're going to have to train in those higher rep ranges. So it's important to not only get stuck in the 8 to 12s, but also carry over into the 4 to 6s and the 12 to 15s and the 25s to 30s to understand that if you become an overall well-balanced, more balanced individual, you're going to put yourself in a more prime position to be able to put on good, lean body mass. Now, also, I would like to say, for the record, and I get this question a lot, females, you're not going to get bulky, you're not going to get crazy looking huge. You are going to get well-defined. Trust me, it takes 10, 15 years to get into that position. So don't worry about that. That's not going to be an issue. So also, a little side note, slow twitch muscles are going to be, you're going to have two different types of muscle fibers, slow twitch muscle fibers and fast twitch muscle fibers. This is kind of just like a little sideline. I don't think it's super important to get too crazy obsessed with understanding basically what they mean is one, slow twitch is going to be good for like, I guess the best way to understand it is slow to burn out. Like you would use those with marathon training or high rep ranges and stuff like that. And then fast twitch is going to be more of like a bodybuilding thing. You're going to burn out really fast. It could be strength training, it could be sprinting, maximum pressure really fast, and then they burn out. Now, understanding that each muscle fiber in your body, and this doesn't go for everything, but it seems like it's a good synopsis that most of the muscle fibers in your body are going to be a pretty much even split of 50-50 of slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers. So it's important to understand that yes, it's good to train in the 8 to 12 rep range, but also sinking down into some of the fast twitch and sinking or raising up into some of the slow twitch is going to be really beneficial. So if you're not getting a full pump, increase them. If you're not getting, fatigued, decrease them. And you're going to have to jump all over the place. And last and final thing, number 12, and I apologize for the length of this video. I just thought this was really important going forward because I think it's one of the most pivotal things that a lot of people don't really understand the basics of. Of course, the last and final thing is going to be water. Water is really good because it carries oxygen to your cells, not only just cells, but muscle cells. And it actually puts you in a prime position to not be able to fatigue as fast or as quickly so that you can train harder and train longer. So I think it's probably ventures to say a lot of the times people will say, I would say personally, unless you're like a super tiny human, and I've had super tiny people that have no problem doing so, but a good rule of thumb is like carry a gallon around with you and cash out the gallon each day. A gallon of water is usually going to put yourself in a good position. You could also take your body weight divided by 2. So if I'm 250 pounds, 125 ounces of water, and that would be in ounces. 128 ounces, I believe, is a gallon. So that would be 3 ounces off of a gallon. So just carry a gallon and then you're good to go. I hope this information helped you guys. I'm sorry for the length of the video. Again, if you are new here, please check us out on Facebook. Our group is called Healthy Living for Healthy Life. I will link that up in the description below. Happy training. Stay safe. Be stronger than your excuses. Remember to spread love, not hate. Drink your damn water. Stay on track. # Team Boo. And thank you so much, as always, for all the support. Thank you. Bye.